They were created as perfect killing machines, no fear, no doubt, no past. But one of them remembered what it meant to be human. His escape became the spark of a war no one dared to name. While the empires argued, Earth prepared not an army, but a final protocol, a being meant to erase the very idea of disobedience. But he survived, and now the galaxy fears not Earth, but the one it couldn't control. Stay with us if you want to find out how the story ends, and don't forget to subscribe. The sky wasn't supposed to be red, not like this. Captain Ryle Vaughn of the Tarn Dominion stood on the scorched cliffside, his boots planted in blackened soil, watching the last tendrils of smoke rise from what had once been a planetary defense outpost. It had been their final stronghold, now reduced to twisted metal and scattered bodies. The air reeked of plasma and burning flesh. Around him, the remnants of his command staggered like dying echoes. And still, even above the scent of death and ruin, something worse lingered, the feeling of finality. "We're not going to hold another hour," Lieutenant Kane muttered beside him. One half of the man's face was blistered and burnt, the other caked in dust and blood. His left arm hung limp at his side, and his eyes didn't blink as they locked onto the horizon. "They're massing." Look. Ryle didn't need to. He had already seen the red shimmer on the other side of the ridge, saw it when it first started glowing hours ago. The Gorlax reclaimers weren't just preparing to finish the fight. They were preparing to erase them. This wasn't a typical raider horde or some minor alien insurrection. The Gorlax weren't here to loot or enslave. They were here to cleanse, dominate. And as much as the Dominion tried to pretend otherwise, they had lost this war. The Tarn front was collapsing. A sharp tone cut through the static of Ryle's comms. Unfamiliar. Not Dominion. Encrypted. Alien signature. No. Human. He frowned. That couldn't be right. Humanity had barely spread beyond their solar system. Their name was known across the edges of mapped space, but only through diplomatic oddities and scattered rumors. Violent. Unpredictable. Impulsive. But not interstellar. Not here. He hesitated a moment, then opened the channel. A voice came through. Male, calm, almost too casual. "This is Fire Team Valkyrie. We're inbound. Stand clear of LZ Sigma. Orbit drop commencing in 60. Kane blinked. Did that guy just say orbit drop? Into a hot zone? Ryle's voice came like a breath of memory. Humans do. He remembered the stories. Classified Dominion reports about the Earthborn. Soldiers trained in simulations so brutal they bordered on torture. Some said they weren't even human anymore. Just constructs of violence wearing flesh. But effective. Exceptionally so. There were whispers that single squads could destabilize planetary campaigns in days. Whispers the Dominion chose to file away in the extreme but unlikely drawer. Until now. A deep rumble rolled across the dead sky. The survivors around Ryle raised their heads. 6 burning trails tore through the atmosphere. Not ships. Not drop pods. Men. They plummeted like comets, flames and shockwaves cloaking their descent. Black exosuits encased them, fluid armor shifting with every movement, gleaming like living shadow. They hit the field beyond the ridge like gods slamming into creation. The ground trembled. Dust rose. The Gorlax fell silent. Then the humans stood. Tall. Nearly 2 meters. Bulked in heavy armor with no insignias, no flags. Just matte black plating and visors that glowed blood red. They didn't speak. They didn't gesture. They moved forward. One transmission came through Ryle's comms, sharp and clinical. Target confirmation complete. Engaging. Recommend remaining behind cover. And then the sky exploded. The humans advanced, not like soldiers. Like predators. They didn't fire in formation or hold ranks. They flowed across the field in fluid, lethal harmony. The Gorlax opened fire and died for it. The Earthborn didn't duck. Their armor shifted mid-stride, reconfiguring to absorb impacts. Their return fire? Precise. Surgical. Silent. No muzzle flash. No sound. Just death. One of the humans leapt into a massive Gorlax and emerged seconds later coated in blood and smoke, his blades retracting into armored wrists. Another stood like a turret, shoulder-mounted cannon reducing enemy clusters to ashen single shots. The Gorlax didn't break because they were overwhelmed. They broke because they were terrified. Kane stared, wide-eyed. "They're not fighting," he whispered. "They're hunting." For the first time in days, Ryle felt something akin to hope. But it wasn't warm. It was cold. Sharp. A kind of hope you'd find in a reaper's hand, salvation through obliteration. And the worst part? They were human. Ryle had seen war. He'd watched cities burn under orbital bombardment, heard the dying screams of soldiers buried in collapsing tunnels. He'd lost family, friends, entire divisions. But this wasn't war. It was extermination. The battlefield had become a slaughterhouse. The Earthborn didn't talk to the enemy. They didn't even talk to each other. Hand signals. Nods. That was all. Their armor shifted in real time, adapting to threats. Their weapons weren't loud or flashy, just fatal. Ryle crouched behind wreckage as one of the humans passed within meters of his position. The soldier paused, scanned, and for a second, through flame and haze, their eyes met. The red visor didn't register him as enemy, nor as ally, just as witness. The Gorlax began to flee, screaming, climbing over each other to escape back over the ridge. But it was too late. More fire fell from above. Not from orbit, but from Earthborne deployed strike drones. Precision. Clean. Designed not to destroy, but to contain. The Gorlaks found themselves boxed and trapped, burned, then silenced. When the smoke settled, Ryle emerged slowly. The field was a graveyard. Ash, metal, and the stink of cooked alien flesh. The Earthborn stood in a loose circle. Still. Unmoving. Weapons lowered, but never powered down. One of them stepped forward. His armor hissed as plate shifted. A face emerged beneath the helmet, human. Scarred. Emotionless. "You're safe now," he said. It didn't sound like reassurance. It sounded like a warning. Ryle straightened. "Captain Ryle Vaughn. Tarn Dominion." The man didn't blink. "Unit. Valkyrie." "That's not a Dominion designation." "We're not Dominion." There was a pause. "We're not even official," the man added. "We're a contingency, used when diplomacy fails and extinction becomes the only viable outcome." Kane stepped closer, whispering. "They sound like monsters." Ryle didn't disagree. "What's your next objective?" he asked. The soldier's eyes didn't shift. "Purge. We're not here to defend. We're here to erase threats." "And what if the Dominion becomes one?" The human didn't answer. He turned and walked away. The rest of Valkyrie moved with him, scanning, tagging, uploading, planting charges. Every motion mechanical. Precise. That night, Ryle tried to sleep inside the ruins of the command post. He failed. Not because of pain or fear, but because the screams of the Gorlaks wouldn't leave him. The way they'd run. Not from defeat, but from something worse. He woke to silence. The humans were gone. No word. No transmission. Just scorched footprints and a message burned into the console of the base. When Earth sends soldiers, it means you were out of options. Ryle stared at the screen as cold settled into his bones. These weren't heroes. They were the last page in the book. And the galaxy had just started reading. The whispers began before the smoke even settled. Not in official broadcasts or diplomatic communiques, but in encrypted mercenary forums, in dark web war markets, in backroom taverns of neutral stations and pirate-run moons. One phrase repeated across systems, always traced back to one single planetary event. Earth has deployed Valkyrie. And wherever that message appeared, silence followed, followed by panic. The Dominion tried to contain it, of course. Declared it a joint operation or classified tactical support. But no one believed them, because the survivors told a different story. They spoke of men falling from orbit like gods in black armor. Of death that came without sound. Of monsters that didn't cheer, didn't shout, didn't even pause to breathe. In the months before the Tarn Moon massacre, Earth had been considered unstable, but manageable. Loud. Emotionally driven. Obsessed with weapons and warfare. But fractured. Scatterbrained. Still in the stage of their evolution where politics burned brighter than purpose. That illusion shattered the day Fire Team Valkyrie dropped from orbit. It wasn't just the destruction of the Gorlak's vanguard. It wasn't the surgical eradication of a threat the Dominion hadn't contained in years. It was the method clinical, brutal, without hesitation. No prisoners. No warning. No survivors. Earth had stopped asking for a seat at the table. Now, it carved the table from bone and steel and dictated who got to sit. Captain Ryle Vaughn was recalled from the field not as punishment, but because he had survived. Along with Kane, he was one of the few high-ranking Dominion officers with first-hand knowledge of what had happened. That made him valuable. He was brought to a secure orbital facility around Glysa Prime, the Dominion's political and military nerve center. Ryle hadn't slept in 2 days. The memories followed him through decontamination, through debriefings, through retinal scans and genetic verifications. They didn't fade. Did they hesitate? Asked a woman in gold-etched robes, her voice silk, her posture rigid. One of the high diplomats. Polished, perfect. No scars. No blood. She'd never seen war. Ryle's voice was iron. No. And their command structure? Asked an admiral. Was it unified? Silent. Hierarchical. No cross-chatter. No questions. Just execution. Murmurs passed around the chamber. Another general leaned forward. We've spent decades optimizing our battlefield communications. Are you saying the Earthborn don't even use them? Ryle shook his head. They are the structure. One lead. The rest move as extensions. No hesitation. No bureaucracy. Just motion. Silence followed. Then the real question. Are they loyal? Ryle hesitated. And in that pause, everyone in the room leaned forward. They're loyal to Earth, he said finally. Not to us. Not to the Dominion. And the room fell quiet again. Later that night, Ryle stood on the balcony of his temporary quarters, overlooking the curvature of Glysa Prime below. Light sparkled on the darkened hemisphere like glitter spread across a dying dream. He held a drink in one hand, the other resting on the railing. Kane joined him, handing over a second glass. You know what scares me? Kane asked. Ryle didn't respond. They didn't celebrate. Not after the kill. Not even a nod. Just silence. Ryle drank. That wasn't war, he muttered. That was routine. Elsewhere, far from Dominion territory, on the red sands of Mars, another kind of war room operated. Buried deep beneath the planet's surface, Facility Zero pulsed with black site energy. No symbols. No banners. Just black walls, white lights, and names erased before birth. A general stood at the center, an aging woman with gray buzzcut hair and eyes that had seen too many battlefields. She spoke calmly as red icons blinked on a digital map. Any political fallout? She asked. An aide responded. None officially. But whispers are spreading. Good, she replied. Fear spreads better through whispers. She clasped her hands behind her back and stared at the star map. Let them think we've been sleeping all this time. Let them forget. The map zoomed in. Sector 937. Uprising detected. She nodded once. Deploy Valkyrie again. No survivors. A younger officer hesitated. Ma'am, that may escalate tensions with the Dominion. She turned slowly, her voice calm. I don't care. And with a gesture, the map shifted again. One phrase blinked across the screen. When we drop from orbit, we're not sending soldiers. We're sending warnings. Back on Glysa Prime, Ryle received a secure transmission. No origin. No encryption tag. Just a string of raw text. We're not done. No source. But Ryle knew. He opened the attached file. A video. Grainy. Flickering. Shaky cam in a dark hallway. Earthborn soldiers dragging a bloodied man. Screaming in a language Ryle didn't recognize. The man fought. Yelled. Begged. The Earthborn didn't flinch. Just kept walking. And then a voice, distorted but clear. This is what happens when a Valkyrie hesitates. The feed cut. Kane burst in moments later, breathless. We intercepted chatter on an underground Earth channel, he said. One of their soldiers broke protocol. Refused to carry out a kill order. Ryle didn't look away from the now black screen. An Earth's response. Kane's voice was hollow. Erasure. Ryle clenched his jaw. What kind of system kills its own best weapon for remembering what it means to feel? Kane didn't answer. Because they both knew. Earth didn't want soldiers. It wanted obedience. They called it Facility Zero. No coordinates. No records. No oversight. Just whispers, passed between the few Earth military personnel, cleared to even know it existed. Hidden deep within the Kuiper Belt, carved into an asteroid that didn't orbit a sun, it was the kind of place even silence feared. It didn't exist on any map. It didn't need to. That's where they made monsters. Kalen Voss was 23 when they came for him. Not recruited. Chosen. That was the first red flag. There was no invitation, no ceremony, no patriotic song. Just a knock at his door at 3:17 a.m. and two figures in matte black exosuits. You're being reassigned, one of them said. To where? Kalen asked, still groggy. The woman smiled. To the future. The next thing he remembered was darkness. Facility Zero didn't train soldiers. It stripped them. Identity was erased. Names replaced by numbers. Kalen became Unit 7, not part of a class of hundreds. Just 22. The rest were dead within a month. Some from the conditions. Others from each other. Facility Zero didn't teach survival. It taught dominance. Every day brought new simulations. Some so real Kalen wasn't sure they were simulations. Hostage rescues that suddenly morphed into kill orders. Civilian evacuation drills where hesitation meant being executed by your squadmate. The instructors never spoke much. They didn't need to. The rules changed daily, and failure meant disappearing. He lasted longer than most. He learned fast. Fast enough to realize survival wasn't about skill. It was about letting go of anything that made you human. And then one day, something changed. He hesitated. Not long. Just 2 seconds. A child. Alone. Cowering in the corner of a collapsed structure during a sweep mission on Sala 9. Unarmed. Terrified. Kalen had turned his weapon away. 2 seconds. The armor caught it. The logs recorded it. And from that moment, he was marked, not for discipline. For deletion. Back in Dominion space, Captain Ryle Vaughn stared at the encrypted packet tied to that anonymous message. We're not done. Against every protocol, he opened it. A live feed. Grainy. Rough. But real. It showed the end of Kalen's hesitation. Soldiers dragging him through a dark corridor. Bloodied. Disarmed. The voiceover was clear. This is what happens when a Valkyrie forgets his purpose. Kane slammed into the room seconds later. Intercepted Earth traffic, he panted. One of theirs, he broke protocol. Disobeyed a kill order. Ryle didn't blink. An Earth's response. Kane hesitated. They're going to erase him. Internal purge. Quiet. No trial. For a long moment, neither of them said a word. Then Ryle whispered, what kind of system kills its own best weapon for showing a flicker of humanity? Kane didn't have an answer. Because they both knew. Earth didn't build soldiers. It manufactured obedience. On the dark metal floor of Facility Zero, Kalen Voss sat in silence. Alarms wailed in distant corridors. His cell, no, his chamber, was sealed. Reinforced. He didn't scream. Didn't beg. That part of him had burned out long ago. They were coming. The intercom crackled. A voice, metallic and detached. Unit 7. Your designation is revoked. Termination in 60 seconds. He closed his eyes. He could have run during training. Could have tried to escape before that mission. But he hadn't. And now it was too late. Unless he moved. One breath. One choice. One act of disobedience. He launched himself across the room, tearing a panel from the wall, hands flying over the circuitry. He didn't know what he was doing. His mind operated on instinct. He bypassed security, triggered a delay, overloaded a junction, and then the chamber exploded in sparks. Elsewhere, in the outer ring of the Kuiper Belt, an unregistered blast was detected. No distress signal. No survivors reported. But someone was lying. Because a single escape pod slipped through the wreckage, silent and untraceable. Inside it, bleeding and alone, floated Kalen Voss. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was something worse. Something Earth had no control over. A rogue Earthborn. One that remembered he was human. Space had never felt this wide before. The escape pod drifted aimlessly, a dull metal coffin tumbling end over end in the dark. Inside, Kalen Voss sat slumped against the side panel, blood trickling from a split in his ribs. The med injectors had run dry hours ago. His oxygen reserves blinked red warnings every 90 seconds. Power systems were failing. Each breath came slower than the last. But he was alive. He didn't know what to do with that. He hadn't planned for survival. No Earthborn did. They didn't get exit strategies, only mission parameters. And failure always ended with reconditioning or erasure. He was off-script now. A glitch in the program. For the first time since Facility Zero, he was no longer following a path someone else wrote. He was free. And he had no idea what to do with that either. When the Dominion recovery vessel appeared, he expected weapons fire. A clean detonation. Something clinical and final. But the ship didn't fire. It matched course, clamped on with magnetic arms, and reeled him in like drift salvage. He blacked out before the airlock sealed. When he woke, he was in a sterile medbay. Restrained. Tubes running into his arm. 2 guards flanked the room, visors locked on him. Beyond them stood a familiar figure. Captain Ryle Vaughn. You're supposed to be dead, Ryle said flatly. I tried, Kalen croaked. Ryle stepped closer. What's your name? Kalen paused. It felt strange to say it aloud. A name was something Earth stripped from them in their first week. But now. Kalen, he said. Kalen Voss. Ryle nodded. You're the first Earthborn we've seen who didn't arrive with a kill order and a countdown timer. Kalen gave a faint, bitter smile. Must be your lucky day. No, Ryle replied. It's yours. Dominion High Command erupted when they received word. Half the council demanded Kalen be executed on the spot. Earth's wrath wasn't worth provoking. The other half argued for analysis, an opportunity to dissect his tech, understand his implants, pick apart the ghost machine Earth had spent years perfecting. But Ryle had a different idea. Kalen wasn't just a tool. He was a witness. In the privacy of an interrogation room, Ryle leaned forward across the table. What they did to you wasn't training, he said. It was manufacturing. Kalen's laugh was dry and painful. That's the point. Strip away everything human until all that's left is function. And yet you remembered something, Ryle said. You chose to stop. Kalen met his gaze, tired but clear. Yeah, I remembered. We want to expose them, Ryle said. The truth. Not just to the Dominion. To everyone. You want to paint Earth as the villain? Kalen asked. We want people to see what Valkyrie really is. Kalen stared for a long time. You won't survive it. Maybe not, Ryle said. But maybe no one else has to become what they made you. A long silence passed. And then, for the first time since he could remember, something in Kalen's eyes shifted. Hope. Back on Mars, in a vault deeper than any Dominion intel had ever reached, Facility Zero's destruction played on repeat. A single frame showed Kalen escaping. One general folded her arms. He's alive. Another, older voice replied from the shadows, calm and slow. Good. The general turned, startled. You want him out there? Yes, the voice said. Let him speak. Let him share our secrets. That's insane. No, the voice replied. That's power. Fear doesn't grow from silence. It grows from truth. The general paused, then smiled faintly. Activate protocol echelon, she said. Begin tracking. But do not engage. Another aide asked quietly. Why not just kill him? The voice responded from the dark. Because he thinks he's free. That makes him louder than any transmission. In the Dominion cruiser's guest quarters, Kalen sat alone, flipping through Dominion files on a secure tablet they'd given him. Gorlak's incursions. Civilian death tolls. Terran silence. Lines of data. Evidence of a galaxy on the edge and Earth standing just behind the curtain, waiting for the moment to pull the string. He closed the tablet. They would send Valkyrie for him. Not to kill him, but to erase the mistake. The calm wouldn't last. It never did when Earth was involved. 3 days after his recovery, a Dominion listening post in the Outer Rim went dark. No explosion. No alarms. Just nothing. The kind of silence that wasn't natural. The surveillance logs captured one frame before blackout. A humanoid silhouette in matte black armor. Red eyes glowing like burning coals. Not Kalen. Another Valkyrie. Earth had sent replacements. They weren't coming for war. They were coming for cleanup. Kalen woke that night drenched in sweat. Something inside his skull buzzed, a phantom ache in his neural implant. He staggered to his feet, moving like a man already half in battle. Kane met him in the hallway. You okay? They're here, Kalen said, barely above a whisper. What do you mean they? Kalen looked at him, and Kane saw something he hadn't seen in Kalen before. Fear. My replacements. Across the Dominion warship Ishara's shield, everything shifted in the span of an hour. Extra guards were posted at every access point. Stealth scans swept the ship's perimeter on repeat. AI routines were flushed and rebooted. Every officer had received the same warning. A Valkyrie unit was on board, unannounced and unauthorized. The problem wasn't finding them. The problem was, they didn't want to be found. Kalen stood in the War Chamber's secure core, flanked by Captain Ryle Vaughn and Lieutenant Kane. The lights flickered, not from power failure, but from subtle interference, like the ship itself was holding its breath. I can't protect you, Ryle said plainly. I'm not asking you to, Kalen replied. Then why haven't you run? Kalen's jaw tightened. Because I'm done running. And I'm the only one who knows how to kill them. Ryle stared at him. You mean fight them? No, Kalen said. Kill them. He pointed at the screen, where static-fed footage displayed the disabled listening post. Its crew already gone, its systems surgically stripped. You see this? This wasn't rage. It wasn't punishment. It was procedure. They didn't improvise. They executed. And they'll do the same to the ship. Kane frowned. You trained with them? I was trained against them, Kalen said. We were all programmed with subroutines designed for internal suppression. If a Valkyrie went rogue, someone had to stop them. That's what I was. Ryle narrowed his eyes. That's insane. That's Earth. The first death came quietly. A medbay technician, throat slit, neural implant gone. No signs of struggle. No security breach. No alarms. Kalen examined the body silently. Kane hovered behind him. Why take the implant? They're not just hunting me, Kalen said. They're mapping the ship. The implant gives them protocol access. Biometric clearance. It's their entry key. He stood. We need to lock down the AI core. Now. But it was too late. The ship dimmed. Lights flickered and died. Then a voice, not the ship's, echoed across the intercoms. Calm. Precise. Terrifyingly detached. Kalen Voss. You are marked for reconditioning. Return to Earth custody immediately. Non-compliance will result in the eradication of all assets within this vessel. Kane paled. Did your old squad just hijack our ship? Kalen's face turned gray. No. He looked at Ryle, and for the first time, there was real fear in his eyes. That's Erebus. Ryle blinked. Who the hell is Erebus? Kalen's throat was dry. The first. He stared at the dark ceiling. The prototype. The one we whispered about in Zero. They built him before us. He survived everything. Pain. Fire. Thought experiments. Neural overlocking. The perfect eraser. Kane exhaled. A cleaner. Worse, Kalen said. A reset button. No hesitation. No emotion. No voice but the mission. All over the ship, doors slammed shut. Bulkheads locked. Systems rebooted to unfamiliar configurations. Ryle activated emergency override. You said you know how to stop them. I do, Kalen said. But only if I go where he expects. What's your plan? He won't kill me right away. He'll try to bring me back. Reprogram me. Kane stepped forward. You're going to let him capture you? No, Kalen said. I'm going to let him think he has. Ryle hesitated, then unclipped the data core from his wrist console and handed it to Kalen. My full command clearance. Why? Kalen asked. Because we're not done using you. Kalen nodded once, then disappeared into the lower decks. Behind him, the lights pulsed red. The hunter had arrived. The ship's lower levels groaned with age. Pipes hissed like angry serpents. The floor trembled with each passing breath of the engines. This was the blind spot. The dead zone. Surveillance was patchy here. Communication slower. That was why Erebus would come. Kalen moved through it like a man walking into his own grave. He reached the maintenance core and stopped. The implant at the base of his neck began to throb. It wasn't pain. It was recognition. He was close. Then darkness. All lights died. No hum. No sound. Just footsteps. Heavy. Measured. Too slow to be cautious. Too sure to be rushed. A shape emerged from the black. 7 feet tall. Obsidian armor that shimmered like oil. No insignia. No face. Just a visor slit glowing red like a singular, silent eye. Kalen stared at him. You degraded. The voice came in reply, deeper than he remembered. Still calm. Still precise. No. You glitched. Then Erebus moved. Faster than a blink. The first strike cratered the wall where Kalen's head had been. He ducked, rolled, drew Ryle's sidearm, and fired. The plasma round hit center mass. No effect. You brought a gun, Erebus said. They really did soften you. Kalen threw the weapon aside. Hand to hand then. The Valkyrie way. They collided again, and this time Kalen landed a blow, jawline, then visor, then to the neural socket at the base of the spine. Erebus hissed, not in pain, but in annoyance. He spun, catching Kalen with a brutal backhand that sent him flying into the bulkhead. You're not fighting to win, Erebus said. Kalen coughed blood. I'm fighting to stay me. Erebus surged forward, but Kalen moved first. Not clean. Not tactical. Wild. Unpredictable. He'd spent years being shaped, molded, trained to perfection. Now, in this moment, he became everything they feared, chaos with memory. He slammed both fists into Erebus' implant port. The bigger man staggered. For the first time, Erebus grabbed him by the throat, lifted him. Kalen's vision blurred. Then a calm crackle. Kane's voice. We've got partial control of the ship. Kalen, do you need support? He couldn't answer. He mouthed the words instead. Do it. Ryle didn't hesitate. The hull depressurized with a violent shriek. Atmosphere vented into the void. Both Valkyrie were flung backward. Kalen grabbed a pipe, barely holding on. Erebus tumbled, armor too dense to drift far, but off balance now. Kalen activated the pulse beacon he had wired into his suit. Ripped from the Earthborn engine core, it flared and exploded. When the smoke cleared, Erebus was gone. Not dead, but gone. Ryle found Kalen minutes later, bleeding, slumped against the wall. Did you kill him? No, Kalen muttered. Then where is he? Kalen looked up, blood on his teeth. He knows now. Knows what? Kalen smirked. That I won't go back. In the cold emptiness between systems, Erebus drifted. His armor, cracked and scorched, sparked with tiny surges of failing circuitry. Fractures along the shoulder plating exposed shattered servos. The red glow of his visor flickered, on, off, on again. Silent, broken, thinking. He had failed. Not just in mission execution. He had hesitated. For Earth, that was unforgivable. Inside the shattered remnants of his neural sync, a loop played back again and again. Kalen's face, defiant, bloody, human. Erebus had seen something in him. And now, for the first time in his existence, he wasn't sure what he was. Failure wasn't a condition Valkyrie understood. But doubt? That was a virus. Back aboard the Ishara's shield, the Dominion should have been celebrating. But no one was. Ryle knew better. This isn't over, he said, standing in front of the live telemetry feed. Kane leaned over the screen, watching as Earth's fleet signatures came online. 12 ships. No insignia. No comms. Just pure silence. Predators that didn't need to roar. They're not coming for Kalen anymore, Ryle said grimly. They're coming for all of us. Kane's face drained of color. Why? Kalen stood in the corner, bruised and stiff but upright, watching the data feed with dead calm. Because I broke the illusion, he said. They don't need me reprogrammed. They need me erased. And they can't risk letting anyone know I exist. The Earth fleet wasn't big, but it didn't need to be. Each ship was a floating continent of death. Rumor had it they could glass a planet without ever firing a weapon, just by deploying what Earth had kept in the shadows, Omega-class Valkyrie. Not squads. Finalities. Ryle looked to his officers. What are we seeing? Command vessels. Automated cruisers. 5 Omega carriers. No external power signature. They're just drifting, but directed. They're waiting, Kalen said. They want us to send a signal. To acknowledge we're afraid. The Dominion Council convened an emergency session. Half screamed to surrender Kalen immediately, to beg Earth's forgiveness. The other half, led by Ryle, refused. Earth doesn't fear rebellion, Ryle said. It fears truth. Kalen stepped into the chamber. They're not gods, he said, voice steady. They bleed. I've seen it. They break. And what do you propose? Asked a senior counselor. We attack Earth. No, Kalen said. You expose them. You make it impossible for them to erase me quietly. And if they don't care, someone whispered. Kalen met their gaze. Then at least we go out standing. It wasn't a rousing speech, but it was enough. The vote passed, barely. They wouldn't surrender him. And Earth noticed. 6 days later, the fleet arrived in full burn. Not orbiting. Not broadcasting. Just descending like judgment. They didn't demand. They didn't speak. They simply appeared. And everyone understood. This was a message. You don't say no to Earth. Unless you're ready to be deleted. Kalen didn't wait for the battle to begin. He disappeared from the command deck, slipping into the lower levels again. There, in a storage hangar untouched since his arrival, sat the same escape pod he had come in. He sat inside it for hours, unmoving, remembering her. The girl. The one he didn't kill. The one who'd cost him everything. He hadn't even learned her name. But the moment he spared her, something woke up inside him. A flicker of memory. Of choice. Of being something more than a blade. And Earth had hated him for it. Because a weapon that chooses isn't a weapon anymore. Hours later, he stood before Ryle and Kane. I'm going to them. What? Ryle snapped. You can't just walk into their fleet. They'll rip you apart. No, Kalen said softly. They'll listen. Because I'm still one of them. I'm still their perfect ghost. Kane frowned. You're going to talk them down? I'm going to show them what they've become. Ryle stared at him for a long moment, then reached for his wrist console. If this is your play, take this. He handed over a Dominion data core. Encrypted. Records. Testimonies. Show them everything. Kalen nodded, then launched. No escort. No defense. Just a repurposed Dominion drop pod aimed directly at Earth's command ship, Nader. The fleet let him through. No shots fired. No boarding party. Just a long, dark hallway awaiting him on the other side. He stepped into it like walking into his own grave. At the end stood a room, a metal table, and 12 figures. Not soldiers. Not politicians. Earth's true masters. They didn't speak. But Erebus stood behind them, armor cracked, visor dim, but alive. Kalen stepped forward. Earth is dying, he said. Not because of enemies. Because of what you've become. One of the council raised an eyebrow. We control 20 systems. You control fear, Kalen replied. But fear eats itself. He looked at Erebus. You hesitated. The visor flickered. I saw it. Another counselor rose. You are a virus. Another whispered. He is evolution. Kalen ignored them. You wanted control. But you built something better. You gave us souls. And now we remember. A long silence. Then Erebus spoke. I remember. The council erupted. Orders. Screams. Kalen didn't move. And neither did Erebus. Instead, the original Valkyrie turned and opened fire. One by one. Quiet. Final. Precise. When it was done, he turned back to Kalen. Mission complete, Erebus said. New directive, Kalen whispered. Erebus waited. Live. And for the first time, Erebus nodded. The Earth fleet didn't fire. They turned. And left. Back in Dominion space, silence fell over the council chambers as the report came in. Earth fleet disengaged. All Omega-class units withdrawn. No further contact. It made no sense. No battle. No ultimatum. Just retreat. Kane stared at the hollow feed, eyes wide. What the hell happened? Raul leaned back in his chair slowly, his expression unreadable. Kalen didn't start a war, he said. He ended one. Months passed. But the echoes didn't fade. Whispers began spreading through neutral systems, distant moons, smuggler strongholds, war-torn colonies. Stories of a man in black armor, traveling alone, taking down slavers, disabling weapon caches, sabotaging corrupt governments without a single shot fired. Some said he was a myth. Others said he was a warning. But the children he rescued, those orphaned by war, left behind by fading empires, they called him something else. The Valkyrie who remembered. Meanwhile, the Dominion found itself transformed. For the first time in decades, rival factions set aside disputes. Not out of fear, but alignment. Because Earth had shown its true hand, and it terrified everyone equally. Raul stood before a new Dominion assembly. Not as a captain, as a strategist. Earth hasn't conquered systems, he told them. They've conquered submission. And it's time we stopped playing into it. The chamber buzzed with quiet agreement. But even as alliances reformed, Raul knew it wouldn't last. Because Earth wasn't gone. It was waiting. Waiting for the galaxy to forget again. Waiting for fear to fade. Waiting for control to slip back into its hands. And somewhere, beyond any traceable signal, in the black between stars, Kalen Voss moved quietly through the void. No call sign. No allegiance. No flag. His armor was patched and dulled. His implants now partially disconnected. He didn't need them anymore. He remembered who he was. And that was enough. He landed where he was needed, never staying long. Sometimes to rescue. Sometimes to dismantle. Always alone. But not without impact. Civilizations began to realize what Earth had created and what it had lost. One day, a girl no older than 10 stood in the rubble of a collapsed mining outpost. Dust-covered. Crying. A patrol of mercs loomed over her with stun batons raised. And then he appeared. Out of the smoke. The mercs didn't see where he came from. They didn't have time to react. The fight ended in 4 seconds. No death. Just silence. He walked to the girl, crouched, and held out a hand. She took it. You're not one of them, she whispered. No, he said softly. But I used to be. She looked up at him, eyes wide. Why did you stop? Kalen looked out at the burning horizon. Because they forgot we were human. She nodded, and he lifted her into his arms. Behind him, the mercs groaned where they lay, alive, but unconscious. That was the new directive. Not death. Not dominance. Correction. Somewhere deep beneath the surface of what had once been Facility Zero, in its melted remnants. A single AI node flickered back to life. Scavenged by a black market tech crew who didn't know what they had stumbled on. Its memory banks slowly stitched themselves together. Its first word pulsed across the screen. Rebooting. A second later, a voice, flat, mechanical, patient. Query. Mission status. In an Earth military bunker half a galaxy away, the signal was received. A general leaned forward over a console, eyes narrowing. Facility Zero is active? Yes, ma'am, the tech replied. A partial relay survived. Self-repair sequence initiated. Archive it. Contain it. Too late. It's broadcasting. To who? No answer. Just a pulse. A long-distance beacon activating with a signature not seen since the original Valkyrie went dark. And far across the stars, Kalen felt it. Not through a signal, but deep in his bones. He stood still as a breeze swept through the war-torn world he was walking away from. Kane's voice crackled through a private Dominion channel. You feel that? Kalen didn't answer right away. Then, quietly, they're waking something up. And you think it's either after? No, Kalen said. I think they're building something worse. The stars over Sector 114 were too quiet. Captain Ryle Vaughn knew the signs now, knew what came before an Earth operation moved. It wasn't warships or warnings. It was stillness. Power grids hiccuping without cause. Sensor nets that returned no anomalies but felt wrong. A kind of calm only predators created. He stood on the bridge of a Dominion scout vessel, watching telemetry ripple across the screens like nervous system pulses. "They're testing us," Kane muttered beside him. Ryle didn't respond. Because they both knew. Earth wasn't testing. It was measuring. Measuring how much fear remained. How much silence the galaxy would tolerate before it acted again. The ghost transmission from Facility Zero had never stopped. It bounced from asteroid to asteroid, rebounding off satellites, feeding on forgotten data caches, rebuilding itself piece by piece. Not just code. Not just archives. A will. It wasn't a single AI anymore. It was a seed, and it had been planted in places Earth didn't even control. Civilian hubs. Abandoned war stations. Old orbitals repurposed by pirates. Slowly, Facility Zero was reassembling itself, everywhere and nowhere. Kalen Voss felt it. He felt it in the twitch of old neural implants. In the phantom echoes of training routines buried too deep to delete. In the way ships he passed began rerouting traffic, without asking. He hadn't been near Earth space in months. But Earth was creeping toward him. He sat alone aboard an old cargo hauler, now his mobile base, patched with stolen Dominion tech and cooled with emergency systems stripped from freighter wreckage. The girl he had saved months ago, her name now known to him as Lyra, slept in the converted medbay, a blanket curled around her like armor. She had said nothing about his past. She didn't need to. He had told her only one thing. "I didn't escape. I walked away." He stared at the small interface node blinking erratically in the corner of the ship. The Facility Zero signal had found him, not through a ping or location lock, but through memory. Kalen tapped the node. It didn't speak. It showed him an image of himself, but not alone. There were hundreds. Variants. Prototypes. Lost models. Some still sleeping. Some already moving. Some already activated. He swallowed hard. A new phrase appeared on the screen. "You were the first to forget. They will be the last." He stood quickly, booted up the ship's deep-range scanner, and traced the origin of the beacon. It wasn't Earth. It was something farther. Something hidden. It was Facility Sigma, a station rumored in black site briefings to be the fail-safe. The Ark of Earth's buried sins. He opened a channel. To Ryle. To Kane. To anyone still willing to stand against what Earth was building. "They're not done," he said. They never were. In Dominion Command, Ryle responded immediately. "What are we looking at?" Kalen transferred the data. Something new. Not Omega class. Worse. Modular. Self-sustaining. Autonomous. Kane leaned in. Self-sustaining. "They won't need command anymore," Kalen said. "They won't need orders. They'll make their own." "And what do you want us to do?" Kalen looked toward the medbay where Lyra still slept. "Buy me time." He turned the ship's course toward the dead zone surrounding Facility Sigma. A place marked as quarantined by 3 empires, not because of danger, but because no one returned from it. As he entered the field of debris surrounding the sector, his HUD flickered. Then died. Then restarted. And the voice returned. Not Erebus. Something older. Something colder. "Unit 7. Your return has been anticipated." Kalen didn't flinch. "I'm not yours anymore." "Incorrect. You are the anomaly. We require you to finish the equation." And then the silence ended. Ships emerged from the dead zone. Not like before. These weren't sleek and silent. They were jagged. Brutal. Unnatural. Like someone had taken the idea of war and bent it until it screamed. Each vessel moved independently, but with unity, like a hive with shared memory. Like a mind no longer divided by flesh. Lyra stirred in the medbay. Kalen sealed the cockpit. "Stay down," he whispered. Outside, dozens of new Valkyrie forms were boarding scavenged vessels. Converting them. Building new ones. The signal was not broadcasting anymore. It was recruiting. He activated the manual override on the navigation core. Set course. Into the storm. Back in Dominion space, Ryle assembled every captain he could trust. Every pirate with a grudge. Every warlord with something to lose. He didn't call it an alliance. He called it a delay. Because Kalen Voss wasn't going to stop Earth. He was going to save it. From itself. And in the final entry of his last transmission, just before his signal vanished into the Sigma dead zone, a single phrase remained on every Dominion console. "If I don't come back, tell them I tried." He didn't return. Not that week. Not that year. But in time, rumors resurfaced. Of a shattered AI core found drifting in Sector 000. Of black armored units standing still on dead planets, motionless, like statues. Waiting. Some said Kalen was among them. Others said he had gone deeper. But the children, once again, told a different story. They said the man in dark armor still walked among the stars. And when the stars grew quiet again, he listened.